All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? And I want to thank you guys for coming again. I've got Anissa here to help me today because we're going to dive in deep on some things that she's actually my go-to expert on the system we use, and so I've got her on board to jump in as we go. And we've got she and I have been working hard this week. We've come up with I think a really exciting opportunity for you guys. I'll share with you at the end of the call. But you know, we had to really pull some strings and jump through some hoops to make it happen. But I'm excited to be in a position to offer it to you. You know, I think these calls are going really well, and I hope you guys continue to get value out of them. And I think I found a way to give you a pretty tremendous gift at the end of the day. So I'm just sort of scanning the names that I can see, and I think everybody pretty much knows who I am. If you don't, probably now would be a time to speak up. And if not, then I'll just go ahead and skip past the story of myself because you guys already know all that, right? But, you know, really to put the context back on this, what we're doing here is sort of working our way through a list of 24 fundamentals for business that will drive you into more resilience immediately, get you on the path to rapid recovery, and really end up helping you build a more resilient, more valuable business in the long run. So last week, we reviewed some of the results some of you got from the Discovery Business Assessment. We'll do that again today if we can. But if you haven't done that, let me encourage you to do that, because that's actually going to be a starting point for what we're up to anyway. I also mapped out a plan for how we were going to approach the fundamentals, and so today is just the implementation of that plan. I shared some information about and principles about exit strategies, and how an exit strategy is really not about the exit, it's about the strategy that emerges from the exit strategy. It identifies the value drivers for your business and becomes sort of a critical component of perspective, that it's really not that you need an exit strategy when you're ready to exit. You really want to develop that strategy as early as possible. And I talked a bit about how it's not it's not carved in stone, a fixed objective. It's actually something that's dynamic. It's something that can change over time. As you gain traction in the market, you'll see that the profile of prospective buyers changes over time. They're going to have various areas of interest, and you'll be able to make value-oriented decisions on where you make investments of time and money based on what you see emerging as the key value drivers for your business. I then spent a little bit of time talking about value drivers, sort of what they are and what they're not, and how they're really not what people think they are, and that they're really principal area of focus for you to build a very resilient and fast-growing, value-growing business, and really to maximize that asset value of the investment you're making. We talked a bit about how, you know, if you invest in somebody else's company instead of your own, you know, what the relative value return on that was going to be. So with that knowledge, you can make better decisions, and you'll end up building a better business in the short run, and then, of course, a more valuable business in the long run. Then I talked a little bit about how there are traditional value drivers or traditional metrics and sort of non-traditional ones. We had covered the impact mission on the previous call. That actually reemerges several times throughout the process. So, you know, be thinking about that one further if you haven't already given that some energy. And then last week we talked about social intelligence and what that's really all about, that it's really a function of developing deep relationships with the customers in your market, and really with all your stakeholders, and using the instrumentation that's available today electronically and digitally to really build a much more robust relationship, a deep relationship with your client, and that's going to actually make your business much more sustainable and, of course, valuable in the long run. And I got some great feedback throughout the week, and I'm excited about that. A lot of thumbs up, a lot of positive things. So we're just going to keep going here. And as always, you know, I'm going to try to leave enough time for Q&A, and certainly I'm interested in hearing updates from any of you along the way at things you're experiencing as you sort of reach into implementation of the things we're talking about. This week, I want to drive into 2 of the 18 core drivers. But before I do that, I wanted to open it up to any of you who want to share anything, any insights or anything you've gotten from either the information on these live streams or the business assessment. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Okay, then that says you just want me to get busy. I got it. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is the first operational driver. You might remember in the first meeting, I talked about how these fundamentals are sort of categorized in market fundamentals and operational fundamentals. And you can look at that as the market fundamentals are the way you're perceived in the market and how you manage that perception. And the operational fundamentals are how you go about functioning in the market, and sort of more internally focused, but you'll see why that's not really a precise definition. The first area I want to talk about is the company as it is. Now, Anise is going to spend a little bit of time on this at the end of the call, explaining why it's important for you to really recognize that you have a vision for your company, you have sort of your goals, your objectives, your dreams for your company. And it's very easy for entrepreneurs, particularly for entrepreneurs, to sort of get wrapped up in that perspective and not see the reality of what's here in front of you right now. And it's important from an operational perspective that you be, sort of candidly, brutally, even uncomfortably honest with yourself about where you are in these particular fundamentals. So this first section is really about what you've done to establish your company as it is. And I'm going to start with some things that you've heard before, but I might have a little different perspective on them. The first one is really around values. And it's interesting, I was at a conference in Toronto about a year and a half ago, and I had sort of an insight there that, it really does reflect this way. Your personal values as the founder and the leader of your company really set the values of the company. And so if you haven't spent time really getting clear about your values, then it's going to be very difficult for you to actually create a set of values that drive the behavior and create what I refer to as sort of a guiding star for your business, right? So just recognize there's a chain here. The values of the founder are inseparable. They will create the values of the company, and that will create the value of the business. So it's values, values, value, right? So when you think about company vision, your vision statement is really your inspiration for the business. It's the framework for you in all of your planning. And you might look at it this way, what are you doing? What's the business really all about? And if you haven't taken time to create your vision statement, or a lot of times people have a vision statement, but it's not really a guiding vision. It's not really something that everybody is engaged and focused on. You want to make sure that, this is not something you do from the executive suite and you push down into the organization. You want to involve your team, just like we discussed in the first meeting. You want to involve your team, all of your stakeholders. That's, again, your management team, your employees, your partners and contractors, and your investors, if you have them, into actually creating and articulating, making visible the vision you have for the company, right? So this piece of it, while it seems a little mundane and a little bit sort of old school, it's actually vitally important. And it does create a guiding star for your business. Like, you think about sailors out in the ocean, the way they used to get around before we had GPS and so forth. is, they had to know the stars, and they would use a star as their guide to figure out where they were in this vast expanse of water. And it's the same kind of thing with your business. So spend some time on that, invest some energy in really creating a vision statement for your company that is actually not something that sort of sounds trite and canned, but is really deeply held by the organization, by all your stakeholders, and recognize that it's really who you are. It will be reflective of your values, which of course is reflective of the company values, as I've pointed out. Similarly, you've heard before that you should have a mission statement of some sort. And this is really sort of the fundamental sole purpose of the company. This is, why does your business even exist? What are you really trying to accomplish? Now, remember, if you reflect back on the first two sessions, we talked about how, this isn't the mechanics of the business. This is really related to what are you intending to accomplish by being successful in your business. Now you can see that the impact mission, the culture that you create around the impact mission, the culture you create, and the way you impart values into the company is critically important to actually establishing the mission for the company, the sole purpose of the company, right? And again, just like with the others, you want to make this thing visible. So it can be a plaque on the wall. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want it to be part of who the company is. I have a team member who is sort of my he sort of keeps me on this one. Is that I might get enthusiastic about trying something new and moving in a different direction, or looking at a particular opportunity with a new kind of client. And he's a great grounding rod, because he always pulls me back and says, okay, that's all very interesting, but what does that have to do with the purpose of the business, right? And it's a tremendous asset to have, because he allows me to very quickly see that, oh, well, that I was just really looking for some short-term gain, when really it's right. It's not consistent with the mission of the business. So no, we're going to turn away from that. Or might be the opposite. We're going to do more of that because I can see how it can really enhance our walk through that mission and so forth. So again, make it visible, make it part of who you are, make it part of your conversation every day. I don't know if you do weekly all hands meetings or something similar to that. If you don't, it's a good idea to start opening the conversation with all your stakeholders on a regular basis. The first time I went to an all hands meeting, there was a ring of 22 people around a software startup. It felt sort of odd at first for everyone to just sort of go around the room and share what they were experiencing and what they were working on and so forth. But it ended up being a incredibly powerful unifying practice. And it was really the thing that led to us collectively creating a very powerful vision and a very powerful mission that actually helped contribute to creating the success in those businesses. So you don't want to skip past these things, and you don't want to just check them off like, oh yeah, we have a mission statement, that's good. You want it to be a deep-seated component of your culture, okay? These are really decision filters. And as the example I gave you, when my teammates use the decision filters to help me make better decisions, I'm a better leader and we build a better business, right? Then, you sort of step from there into the area of goals and goals alignment. The question you have to ask yourself is, do you as a founder have clearly defined personal goals for your business? I mean, we look at these things, we can fall into a trap where we see our lives bifurcated into compartments. I mean, it's sort of a natural function of the human brain to compartmentalize. And we even use it in our language. When you think about it, we even say things like my work life, my family life, my love life, whatever it might be. But how many lives do we really have? I mean, we really have just one life, right? So what's important is that you see this as another part of your one life, and that it has to serve the other areas of your life. I can do a poll, but I imagine I know the answer. How many people find themselves like overdoing it in your work life and sacrificing your personal or your family life sometimes, right? It happens a lot, particularly as entrepreneurs, right? And it comes from a psychological context that somehow we've convinced ourselves that if we invest ourselves heavily in our work life, in our business, that it's eventually going to pay a dividend to our family. I mean, we even tell our families that. So I really have to do this now because it's going to give us the financial security to do things we want to do in the future. But that turns out to be baloney, right? Because those things in the future never actually transpire that way. So it's vitally important that you map this out so that your business is actually fueling the creation of the life you really want right now, not the life as you see it sometime in the future. Is this making sense? Okay. It's really hard to do with everybody's muted. Okay. So that's an important piece. So you want to spend some time getting really clear. And again, let me reflect on what Anissa is going to talk about. Really clear and honest with yourself. It's okay to come up with a goal that may not fit what you think is supposed to be part of your goals, but don't constrain yourself with that. Create the business you really want to have. Some years ago, I launched a company called the Perfect Biz Finder. It was really a methodology to help people create a business that really delivered the lifestyle and the life experience they wanted. And it went through a fairly deep process of self-exploration to accomplish that. And what you learn in that process is that if you don't do that, ultimately, it will fail. Ultimately, your business will become an anchor and you will not be living the life. As a matter of fact, you've heard the expression, you put, the ladder on the wrong wall and you built somebody else's business, right? So you just want to make sure that you take the time, and now is a particularly good time to reevaluate this, because there are things that are going to be shifting about that you can take advantage of. We've talked about the opportunities at great length. Now is a time to go through this fundamental thinking and position your business the way you want it to be in your life. Now, then the question becomes, have you set up the context of your personal financial goals as a function of your business financial goals? Do you have those things associated with each other? You'd be surprised, might not be surprised, you might be surprised how many people don't ever make that association. They know they have financial goals. I want to make $1 million or whatever it is, right? Or I want to be financially independent, whatever the hell that means, right? All right. But they never actually map it to specific goals in their business. And if you don't do that, I can guarantee you're never going to accomplish either. So this
Can
is
you give an example of that?
Like an individual example?
Yeah, just
Yeah. So let's say that I have a goal of, I have a financial goal to have a house on the beach in Hawaii or something. All right, let's just say that. And let's say that my vision for the house suggests that, I have a financial objective that is, I don't know, I'm just going to make a number up. Let's say it's $10 million, right? Well, if I don't associate the growth of my business and accommodate or account for all the different aspects, financial aspects of managing that business, so that it doesn't generate that outcome for me, then eventually my business becomes a burden to me because it's not delivering what I really want. So if I get clear about what I really want, and then I literally design that into what I'm building, now it becomes a driving factor, not the only one, but a significant driving factor in setting the goals, the objectives, and the mission of the company, right? So that I'll know that, well, I haven't done the arithmetic here, so the numbers won't make any sense. But if that means that my business has to be generating $100 million a year in sales, well, I know that, okay, I can't really be where I want to be until my business is generating that. Now, then I ask the question, how would I go about generating $100 million in sales? And then you start doing all the complicated arithmetic to figure that out. That then becomes very instructional on what it is you're going to have to deploy in your business in order for you to realize that personal financial goal. Does that make sense now? Right. So it's
Okay.
sort of a, you're sort of engineering from both ends, but the idea is you have some specific objectives, and those objectives become the driving force of action. Right. So uh, the other thing that you want to make sure you're clear on is that as you develop these perspectives, again, you're going to make them visible, because it's not just your financial goals, although that's the start. Just like your values lead to the values of the company, your financial goals lead to the financial goals of the company. But you also need to incorporate the desires, the wishes, the intentions of your employees, your partners, your stakeholders. What are they in it for, right? This is, again, I mean, you could look at investors as a great example. What is the expectation of investors in your company? What do they really want out of the investment they're making? Of course, it's money, but no, it's something more than that, right? You really want to understand that. Your employees, particularly key employees, and you can see this so obviously, if you have a key contributor, excuse me, and you have not constructed your business in such a way that your key contributor is able to experience all aspects of their role in the company, not just financial, but all aspects of the role of their role in the company as a win, or as a manner consistent with what they want, they'll eventually leave you, right? Because it won't be delivering what they're there for. And so it's important that you continue to evaluate this. You're the leader. You're the one that sets the values. You're the one that sets the direction. You're the one that sets the tone. You're the one that figures what star are we going to focus on. And you're the one that drives the ship in that direction. So you want to constantly be looking at this. Reflecting back on our first meeting, you might recall that I said, look, what this is about is you taking this opportunity to chart the course to the outcome you're looking for. And this is the opportunity you have in front of you right now. So it might be a reset for some, it might be a little adjustment for others, it may be no change at all for others, but you want to attend to it, and you want to set up a process for yourself that you are the leader working on the business. Yes, as entrepreneurs, many of us have a role in the business as well. That's true. Unfortunately, we want to move that off our plate as early as possible, of course, but many of us can't move it off immediately because we don't have the resources to do that. But once you do, you would like to spend the vast majority of your time doing the artwork of your business, working on your business, crafting your business, making sure your business is delivering and contributing to all the goals and objectives and the desires and intentions of your employees and stakeholders. Make sense? Okay. So the point is, as you come up with these goals and they feed directly into your objectives, are they connected properly? And here's what I mean by that. I learned this lesson many years ago from Jack Welch, that it's easy to set goals at the top, but how do you translate those top level goals to goals for each person on the team? How do you translate the goals for each person on the team into individual performance objectives on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis? How do you monetize those objectives so that the employee is provided an incentive, and that incentive is aligning with their personal goals and objectives, right? So you can see that there's a connection, there's a trickle down effect where you set it at the top, people come in and you begin to work on, well, as an individual, what is it you want to accomplish with your role in this company? Not just financially, but also emotionally and spiritually and and all other aspects, right? So this is what the leader of a business really needs to spend their time on in order to build a very high quality, very resilient, very stable business that ultimately becomes a very valuable asset, right? So as you do this, you need to make it visible. You need to connect it for people. So as a leader, you need to be able to sit down and say, look, here's why our goal is $100 million this year, right? It's because, you know, these people, this is our objective from a market standpoint. This is our objective from an employment standpoint. This is our objective from an individual standpoint. This is our objective for you, Mr. Employee, right? Or Mrs. Employee. This is what you said you want. And in order for us to deliver this, this is how it all connects together. Now, if you make that visible using a dashboard or whatever other instrument you choose, now everybody can always see how are they doing relative to that goal, relative to that objective, relative to that guiding star. It's a unifying experience. So it's no longer just sort of a random intangible. It actually becomes a unifying force for your business. Now everybody's on the same page. Everybody's on the same mission. Everybody has the same values. Everybody has the same vision, right? So this is the point of going through this part of the exercise. So what we're talking about here is one area of 18, and this area does suggest that the leader invests a lot of energy in understanding this at a very deep level. We good so far? Okay, I'm gonna have to move it along if I'd like to get this done. Go ahead, question? Nope, okay. All right, now as you go through the process, you start looking at your business. There's also some, you know, less exciting aspects of this, you know, like the profile of a business. Do you have good corporate compliance and governance practices? Now, I can tell you that the vast majority of business owners do not invest enough attention around corporate compliance and governance. Who wants to? Nobody wants to, okay? But it's critically important that you do this. So let me just ask you a quick question by show of hands. How many people can readily touch at any time their articles of incorporation?
I
Okay,
can.
good. How many can likewise reach any special licensures or certifications that are necessary?
Yep.
Okay, good. You know, somehow I'm not surprised, John. Right? How many people keep a corporate minutes book?
Nope.
Ah. Okay, that's the key right there. The corporate minutes book is your firewall. It's the thing that keeps you safe, right? It's the thing that says, this is actually a business, this isn't a hobby, and this isn't my personal finances, these are my corporate finances, right? So it's a critically important piece of this. It is, without a doubt, the most mundane part of it. I agree with that. And me not being detail oriented about kills me to do that. That's why I hired a firm to do it for me, right? How many people have a board and have regular board meetings? Right. Well, you have to have something to put in the minutes book, right? And they should occur at a minimum quarterly. So there should be a record kept every quarter of the decisions that were made in that meeting, even if it's yourself. I know it sounds crazy. I mean, I have board meetings and my minutes books consist of why I made the decisions I made, right? So, right. But it's important that you keep that practice in place. And think about it this way. Remember the formula way back in session 1. What's the most fundamental aspect of resilience and value? Reducing risk. So how would a potential buyer evaluate whether or not there was risk in your enterprise if you had no record of any of the decisions that were made and why they were made? There's a lot of risk because he doesn't know what transpired, right? So just recognize that those are important aspects of you building the kind of resilience into your business that you need, right? You should have well-organized documentation on your company, on the industry, right? Year over year sales, gross margin reports, company history, locations of operations, employee count, right? Corporate and legal structures as that changes over time, if it does. Records of from your accountants and your lawyers that are advising the company and so forth. All of these should be in a record book of some sort, right? I told you this was the boring part, but it is a fundamental and it's an important one to attend to. And it's one you probably have time to attend to now if you're not already attending to it. All right, so here's a question for you. If you have employees, if asked, could your employees succinctly communicate what the company does, why it does it, and how it does it? Think so? Okay. Well, if you think that's true, that's good, right? But you'd be surprised how many people say, well, yeah, we can sort of do it. I imagine they could do it. Or, yeah, it's a little unclear in certain areas, but we get the general idea, right? That's all good. But what you want it to be is everyone would sound like they're singing out of the same hymn book every time. I'm sorry?
Oh, I just had a question, Steve, about the corporate minutes book.
Yeah.
I mean, is it something I could Google corporate minutes book and they send something fancy, or is it just a spiral notebook? Like, what is the professionalism of it?
Yeah, there's a well-defined structure for the corporate minutes book. You were actually probably provided one when you incorporated, but you probably didn't actually do anything with it. Most people don't.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
but that's I mean, it's sort of those things. It's a law, and it's a law we're supposed to follow. And it does in fact build the firewall that protects your personal assets. Because in reality, if you're not doing this, then you're not actually running a business. That's literally IRS.
And is it only entered into quarterly, or does just everything regarding the business go in there? Like,
well, it's everything, but the minimum sort of recommended record pattern is quarterly.
okay.
But think about it. Can you remember everything that needs to be recorded once a quarter?
No.
Maybe not. I mean, here's a great example. All of us, many of us applied for the PPP or one of these relief loans, right? That should be in the minutes book.
Gotcha.
The decision to do that and the reason for doing it should be recorded in the minutes book, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right. Now, it gets to be July. When did we make that decision? Well, it was sometime while that was going on. I mean, here's a crisis. We could probably easily figure it out, but it could be some other circumstance where, when did we take that? I mean, here's another thing. Let's say you loan some money to an employee, right? And maybe they pay it back, maybe they don't. That's a different topic. But the decision to loan that money should be there, right? Because it's a decision that was made by the company, not you. If you don't do that, then the IRS looks at that and says, well, you loaned the money. Your company didn't loan the money. You loaned the money. It was your money. And you have it coming out of your corporation, meaning you escaped personal taxes, but you owe taxes on that money. This is the problem with not doing this. Now, they're not really going to mess with businesses our size, but that doesn't mean you don't attend to the details. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we talked about the company story. As part of this, there's another set of elements about sort of defining who you are as a company, and that's being very, very clear about your market. Now, when I say market, everybody has their own sort of perspective on what I mean. Some are thinking about like a SIC code, like an industry class. That's our market. Others are looking at it in a more specific manner, maybe a geographic market or that kind of thing. But what I want to get clear on here is that what's important is that you have a very clear definition about who you're selling your products to and why you're selling those products to them, right? Why are they your market? So a lot of times we refer to this as an avatar, right? But you want to be crystal clear on that, and you want to have that somewhere in your planning document, somewhere in your planning profile. Now, whether I'm not a big proponent of writing written business plans, but you do want to have the information available for yourself and your team to reevaluate from time to time. For instance, I know, Jonathan, if I could use you in an example, you're in the midst of a very dramatic transition. You're moving from a heavily oriented services-based business into a SaaS enterprise, doing it very successfully, by the way. But there are a lot of decisions being made about who the avatar is. And if you're not capturing that, you're losing the leverage that's available to you. Because again, think about that conversation that's going to occur someday in, excuse me, someday in the future. How much risk is involved in owning this thing? Well, if they really know everything about their market, and they really know everything about the people who make decisions to buy products, and everything about people who make decisions not to buy products, and everything about people who don't make decisions to buy or not buy, that business is fundamentally more valuable, it's fundamentally more resilient, it's fundamentally more recovery capable than a business who doesn't know those things. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's why you want to attend to the fundamentals, right? I mean, it's not exciting stuff. It gets more exciting over time, trust me. But you know, this is the stuff that you really want to attend to now because you have the opportunity to do that.
Hey,
The
Steve,
same-
if I could add something here about defining your market. One of the points about that is that you not only know it, but you capture it in writing, and that you have your documentation and your references captured as well. So you can point to, this is the data that drove that decision. So if someone should ask in the future, why did you choose this? You can actually justify it, and they can come back with either a counter argument or their own data to justify their response. But that type of capturing the data, as again mundane as it may seem, that has value, that has huge value, and that defends your company and that reduces risk.
Yeah, again, that's a great point, Anissa. Thank you for adding that, because that might change over time. I mean, Jonathan's a great case. The target market definitely changes without a question, right? And so it was the right decision to make based on all the right research. And now he's making the decision, but there's going to be adjustments along the way. And who knows that in the future, there's not going to be new innovation that would drive a different change. Or maybe there's the emergence of a new avatar, maybe a sub-avatar that we didn't define before. And what it will require is a slight adjustment to the product feature set or something like that. All of those decisions being documented as being researched and thought through and documented are real drivers of resilience and value. Okay, so that's what this is really all about. The same applies for strategic direction and so forth. I mean, all of those aspects, the things that drive the planning, the things that drive the decisions you're making, you want to go through a process, you want to document the conclusions, and you want to implement a way of revisiting those decisions on a regular basis. You're the leader. This isn't your marketing VP's job. This is your job, right? You can go to the marketing VP and say, do you have any new data on what's emerging in this market? I read an article in, such and such a magazine suggested there's a change here. How would that affect us if we were to want to do something about that? This is you driving the business in the direction you want it to go, right? So far, so good? Okay. One of the other ones that I would really encourage you to do, if you don't already do it, is engage a trusted advisor. Does everybody on here have somebody that they can call at any time with any kind of question and they can trust the response that they get? Somebody perhaps more informed, maybe more senior, but maybe more knowledgeable, maybe less senior. I mean, I've got a lot of trusted advisors that are a lot younger than I am, right? But having, George is laughing, but having a trusted advisor or more than one trusted
That'd
advisor.
be you, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I'm good in certain areas. I'm not good in others, right? Don't bring me detail. I can't help you with that, right? But, I mean, Anissa's watched me, and people that have worked with me have watched me many times. I did it today, Jonathan. You had a question. I had an opinion, but I checked with my trusted advisor to make sure my opinion was the right opinion, right? And so we'll share that with you later. But You know, that's the point. You had to have those assets available to you. Cultivate relationships with those assets. Treat them like assets, right? So like, you know, send them a Christmas gift, know their birth date, things like that. It's relationships. Pay attention to the relationships with your trusted advisors as you would anybody else. These people are helping you increase the value of your asset. Yeah, John, you have an idea?
Yeah, what I've done is I've got two advisors. There's three of us. We work in a triad. So the one advisor is similar of mindset of myself. The other one is a bit of a business owner, but more from an academic. So we get a total different perspective and advice. And he says, yeah, you guys already, you know this stuff, but I don't. Here's my question. It's a dumb question.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's my advice is get somebody that's the third wheel that doesn't fit your wagon.
That's a great idea, John. Really, really insightful input there. Absolutely brilliant. Because if the rest of the world doesn't have that, right? So have that perspective. So having a person who really doesn't have deep knowledge is actually a great asset, right? So that's tremendously good input. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have anything? Yes.
I would say also what I've learned is even being more on the sort of startup side, being willing to provide advice and sort of turn around and offer advice back out, kind of providing that karma, and what goes around comes around. So even though I sometimes feel like not that authoritative on things, I have been able to help people, you know, where I can. And I feel like that kind of comes back to, you know, pays off in dividends at some point.
No question about it. Plus, let me build on that. You're absolutely right, Shana. Thanks for sharing that. You know, how many times have you been and asked for advice, and in the process of giving advice, realize that you should take your own advice, right? Whether, you know, you're not thinking of it for yourself, but as you're telling somebody else, it's like, geez, you know, I should do that, right?
Right. We actually implemented that idea also with mentoring within the company for new hires. Is actually the last hired becomes the mentor because they're the ones closest to the onboarding process. Sometimes you just forget all the little things, you know, if you've been doing something for a couple of years or months. And so it's been helpful to have the most recent person who's gone through the process, especially for like government badging and things like that, to actually be the mentor of the new person coming in.
Yeah, you know, that's terrific insight. And again, you know, just keep it all in context here. Think about being the person in the future who's looking at this business. And if these things are all black holes and unknowns, then there's higher risk, there's lower resilience and value, right? So this is why this is a worthwhile investment of time and energy, and it's the leader's responsibility to do it, right? We talked a bit about impact mission, so I'm going to sort of skip ahead a little bit, but you know, get very, very clear about this. You know, you're going to hear me pound the table on this one more than anything else. Have a cause orientation, be deeply committed to that cause throughout the company, make it part of the culture of the company, right? So those are the big areas in that first company factor. So it's the first factor is company, and that's the first operational factor. The first market factor is growth, and I'm sorry I've used up too much of our time. I have some other things I want to get to before we wind up. So I'll just push that into the next meeting, and maybe we'll only do one of these per session instead of two. That might have been a little bit too aggressive, because growth is a pretty substantial one. It's going to take a little bit of time to get through. But in general terms, growth is really about understanding the growth profile of your company and where it actually is in truth and reality in terms of your goals and objectives and whatnot. Then it's also an understanding of the growth characteristics of your industry, the market you're in, you know, and what's really true about that. A lot of times, you know, we'll see something where there might be, we've got a revolutionary thing that we're bringing into a flat market. Well, you know, it's great to want to revolutionize a market, and sometimes that happens. More often than not, the market trend dampens the revolutionary impact of your thing. So you want to make sure you're really clear about how you're going to get your company growth to influence the growth of the market, right? That's when you have a dominance position in the market. That's a strategic orientation to your position in the market. So that's a bit of a preview. Then inside that is a deep understanding of your competitors and the profile, the profile of your competitors' growth. They might be strong in one area, you might be strong in a different area. That's going to be reflected in their avatar. It's going to be reflected in their culture. And remember, if you attend to these things, let me tell you, 90% of the business owners we meet with and we do this assessment for do not attend to these things. You know, we have a list. I won't use the name of it today, but we have a list that we make for people as we go through the assessment. And internally, we're like, I can't believe they don't know this about their business. They need to know this, right? So this is the thing. This is all about getting a deep understanding. Then there are elements of advantage that you have. And really, what we're talking about here is creating 24 new fundamental elements of advantage, because other companies aren't doing this work. If you do this work, you will have an advantage position in your market. Make sense? Okay. All right. So what I want to do is open it up for any questions if you have any. Let's do that first. We asked them along the way, and that's fine if you don't have any. Yes, Matt.
Kind of exciting is Missy and I believe we've identified a group for us to align with on a give back.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I'll let Missy tell a little bit of the story about it. But, and we have a call with them this afternoon. But is there a structure, a couple, maybe 2, 3 different structures that a company would get involved with a nonprofit, have them be like our arm that we would like to participate with, and you know, that you would say is the way we should set something up?
Well, it sort of depends on what the objective of the relationship is. Remember, when we talked about this, there's a lot of ways to choose an impact mission. In some cases, it's around giving campaigns and contributory campaigns. In other cases, it's about, you know, stepping into their world and being on the ground, doing the work with or on their behalf, right? So it really sort of depends there. Because remember, it's not just about money. It's really, you know, about what you're doing. I know we're a member of Maverick, and one of the things that Maverick is committed to is housing homeless people in Haiti. We, you know, in a lot, we all invest money in it, but there's a number of, I'm going to say 20 or 30 of them that actually go down there and work on building the houses as well, right? With hammer, nail, that kind of thing, right? So, you know, there's a lot of different levels of involvement. So I would sit down with them and sort of brainstorm, how can we best participate and have the greatest impact that would be contributing to your mission?
Okay, let's, if we could narrow that down, I could do that pretty simply, just because of the, we wouldn't be physically present, and
Sometimes you could be.
no, but we still have our 2 kids at home. So between the business and the travel for trade shows for the business and all of that, until our kiddos are off into college, which is about 4 years, it would be more of a structure of, you know, donating, publicizing for them, you know, showing up to an event here or there if they have it, but that would probably be work better into our schedule at this point.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. But I just want to point something out. You actually just said 2 things and not one. So there's donating, publicizing, and publicity. That's something you can make a significant contribution to that would have a very significant impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's not the same as, I realize it sounds the same because you're giving time, but it's not the same. So that's really no different than, you know, getting on a plane and flying to Haiti to hammer a house together. You're actually going to do work on their behalf to publicize and to circulate and to introduce them to the opportunity space that exists around you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
John, you have something?
Yeah, to add to that, there's a guy by the name of Rand Brenner. I'll get you the link, Steve.
Okay.
He is an expert in licensing. He just did a webinar with somebody that is an expert at getting grant money to nonprofits. What the webinar was about was 2 streams of income into nonprofits. One is through grants, and then Rand's information on licensing, that nonprofits have a golden opportunity to bring money in through licensing. I'll get you that information, Steve, and then you can filter it out to everybody.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great idea. Excellent. Does that help you guys?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, excellent. All right, we'll get that out to you. Okay, so here's my big announcement, right? And I'm going to need Anissa's help here. But so what we've done is we've worked out an arrangement with our systems provider so that we can actually provide each of you direct access to the deep dive analysis at no cost. So you're going to be able to go into the next level of the system and on a self-paced way, navigate through the system. It's very simple. You know, there are categories, there are questions, there's multiple choice. You pick the answer that best fits your circumstance. And over time, it will build out this perspective, this profile of your business that will point you very precisely into the areas where you can buttress your resilience and boost value. So it's a very powerful system. It's a system we use in all of our engagements. We actually build quite a bit on top of that system, but we've got it set up so we can give you guys direct access to that. We, by the way, will be updated as you work your way through the system so we can actually see the progress that you're making. We can interact with the system. And my hope is that if you'll just take your time, and I'm going to let Anissa speak to that for just a minute, take your time and work your way through the system, you're going to gain insights that you really could not even imagine gaining until now. And so I'm excited to be able to offer that to you. At the end of it, it will generate a very robust report that gives you a lot of detail about where you are. And it actually gives you, I think the coolest report there is something called the Bang for Your Buck report. It prioritizes for you the things you need to attend to first. They're going to have the largest impact on these fundamentals. So, you know, it'll put a magnifying glass right on the stuff you need to work on. So I think, you know, I think it's a great asset to you, and I'm just excited to be able to offer it to you. Anissa, you want to talk a little bit about the process, since she does this for every client. So she's my expert in this system. So.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. So the thing to focus on when you are going through the system and responding to the questions with the multiple choice answers is this is where you need to be brutally honest with yourself. You got to be insightfully straight with yourself and really say to yourself, this is the current state of my business. You even want to defer to being conservative in your answer because you're going to learn where you have the greatest value gaps to close to really gain value quickly. Like Steve and I were talking about this earlier in preparation of this call, and the analogy I came up with was that when I go to renew my driver's license, I get to say what my weight is on that license. But when I go in for my yearly checkup, I'm getting on the scale. And what you're doing here is you're getting on the scale. You want to be straight and honest with yourself about what's the true data that you're capturing about your business. Because you're actually getting to what's so. You're getting to reality. And you can't deal with what you need to deal with if you don't know what reality is. So you get to what's so using our system, and then you learn which actions would be appropriate and powerful in dealing with what's so. So that's what we're offering you today, and we're really proud and happy that we were able to negotiate something and set it up with our system that we can offer this to you.
Okay, so the question is, how do you get access, right? Well, if you've already taken the basic discovery assessment, then you're in the system. All you need, and I can just literally just click a button and the system will send you an invitation to the next discovery, the next level, the deep dive level. If you haven't taken that, then the best way to do that is take that first. I mean, that takes 15 minutes and you'll have some insights that are very valuable. And then I can automatically just invite you to the next level. We debated about using this system on these calls and sort of doing it interactively. I think it'd be too cumbersome to do that because everybody would be at different levels. And I could tell you, don't get any further than step 2, but I know all of you would go to step 10, and then it'd be a mix-up. So rather than that, we're just going to do it this way. And hopefully, I'll try to open up time in our subsequent discussions for you to, provide feedback or questions or ask whatever you learn out of the system so that we can sort of develop that as we go. And of course, if there's anything indicated that suggests that you want to get much deeper and get a deeper understanding, or perhaps what do I do with this piece of information I now have, then we're happy to make ourselves available to you to talk about that and figure out a way we can help you there. All right. Does this sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds
Excellent.
amazing.
Great,
Love it.
thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
the
you.
gift.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard for you to know how good a gift is because you haven't seen it yet. But when you open it, you'll be happy. Okay. So let's see, just like before, next Wednesday, same time, same station. I'll send out reminders again. I don't think you have to re-register, right? I think what we learned is that once you're registered for the series, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's good. Then, we'll just keep going forward. Anything that comes up, any insights you have, any questions you have, any topics you want me to dig more deeply into, just send me an email so I can prepare, and I'll do that. And so far, I feel like this is going quite well. And